Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have deep conversations with fellow traveling models. And today I have a friend of mine who is a retired traveling model that you may have heard of. And honestly, if you haven't heard of her, like, what the fuck? Wonderhussy, say hello.
Hi, everybody.
I'm so happy that you were able to take the time to do this with me. I'm so stoked to have you on the podcast. Somebody else that I didn't even know knew you was like, hey, you should interview Wonderhussy. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm down for any interview. I'm an interview whore, so you asked the right person.
Sweet. Yeah, I like talking about myself too.
I mean, who doesn't?
Okay, so I guess we're going to go from square one because at the off chance that there are people that listen to this podcast that haven't heard of Wonderhussy, I would like to hear from your words how you can describe your history of modeling, like how it started and like a summarization of how your career went and then where you are now.
Okay, well, I was living in Las Vegas and I was working like trade shows, booth babe type gigs. So I needed headshots, to get booked for those kind of gigs. So I joined Model Mayhem just to get headshots. And I put on my profile, I do not shoot nudes. I was very adamant about that. Well, then about a year, 6 months later, I broke up with my boyfriend. I had this kind of conservative boyfriend at the time. And I just kind of let my freak flag fly. Like, oh, now I can be me. I went to Burning Man. I went back to being my weird hippie bohemian self. And then I was like, well, if I'm such a free spirit, why don't I pose nude? And so the first nude shoot I did was just for funsies, just to prove a point to myself. But then I was like, oh, hey, wait a minute. I could make money doing this. I was just doing gigs at the time in Vegas. So I was always on the lookout for a gig and working a trade show for 8 hours a day, standing in a booth, wearing high heels. That is no fun at all. And it doesn't pay as well as nude modeling. So I took the photos from the first couple freebie shoots that I did and I put those up on Model Mayhem and started marketing myself as a nude model. And I did that for a little while, but it really wasn't until I started taking photographers out into the desert that it really kind of took off, because Vegas is full of beautiful women. I mean, I didn't get into modeling until I was like 33. I didn't even start modeling. Yeah. And so I already thought like, oh, I'm too old. I'm flat chested. I'm built like a penguin. I have a long torso, short legs. Like, I don't have a model's physique. Okay. And I was like, I never thought I was like the best looking in the face either. But what I lacked in physical attributes, I made up for with balls, man. I didn't mind. I like being out in the desert, taking guys to remote locations. And I wasn't afraid to do that. I wasn't too lazy to do that. So I started marketing this modeling tour because a lot of photographers come to Vegas for conventions, trade shows, whatever, for whatever it is that they do in their day-to-day life, lawyers, doctors, whatever. Well, then they want to take one day off while they're in Vegas to go do something fun. And so if they happen to enjoy photography, well, they might want to go out into the desert and shoot beautiful photos of a naked woman. So I put together this little package. I had 2 different itineraries. I'll take you to the dry lake bed, the Red Rocks, and the old abandoned silver mine. Or I can take you to the abandoned cement factory, the dry lake bed, and I don't even remember the other place. I had a bunch of locations.
Yeah.
So I charged $500 a day, and I did it for 10 years, pretty much.
Holy shit. I didn't know it was that long.
Well, I modeled overall for about 10 years. So the nude tours, yeah, I probably did it for almost 10 years. And I calculated, okay, I did probably an average of, X number of shoots a week. I didn't work during the summer because it's too hot, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I probably took 500 different men, and they were basically all men, into the middle of nowhere in the desert and got naked for them, which I thought was pretty interesting because I never had any bad experiences in 500 of these things.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's interesting because I have discovered that generally the type of photographer that wants to take an entire day to explore the desert are usually like the artistically motivated ones, not the ones that are getting a hotel,
Well, I mean, artistic is a funny word. It means different things to different people.
Right.
I'll just leave it at that. They were, I mean, for the most part, like when people would go, "Oh my God, Wonderhussy, you're putting yourself in so much danger doing this." I'd go, "No, look at it from the photographer's point of view. Here's a guy who's not from around here. He doesn't know where we're going. I'm driving him. I drove. I'm in charge. I'm taking him out to the middle of the desert where there's no cell signal. I could have a posse waiting for him to beat him up, steal his photo equipment, take his money, or I could just take advantage of him, steal his money,
Right.
It's just as scary from his point of view." And as a matter of fact, there were at least a few guys that, I'd pick him up at his hotel. Like my thing was, I'll pick you up at your hotel at 10 a.m. I'll take you to 3 different beautiful desert locations, pose nude, and then I'll bring you back to your hotel at 6 p.m., 8-hour day. So there's a lot of driving. So I pick the guy up. It's about an hour drive to get to the first location. We have some time to talk, get to know each other. And then we'd get to the first place, which if it had cell signal, a lot of time the guy would be like, "Hey, I just need to text my friends to let them know I'm okay. They were kind of worried that this was a scam." I'm like, "Oh yeah, go ahead. Tell them I said hi."
That's funny. And that's interesting because I've spent a little bit of time around Las Vegas and I have witnessed some sketchy shit on the outskirts of town.
Well, I wasn't going like on the outskirts. I was going way out in the
Yeah.
boonies, like
Yeah.
and I would tell people that too. Like, I'm way more in danger in the city. I mean, I didn't mind doing shoots in hotel rooms, honestly, because it was easier for me. I don't have to drive all over Tarnation. Climate controlled, I can be comfortable. There's security cameras everywhere. But I like adventure, so maybe there is a little bit of risk involved, but I guess I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I totally align with all of that. And I would also like to note that, like, as you've been describing this, there have been so many photographers that have mentioned like your trips around Las Vegas to me. And it does seem like, as far as like the internet era of freelance modeling, you were definitely one of the pioneers that might be one of the first models that initiated these tours where you're driving, you've scouted the locations, because in the past it had always been like the photographers doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
And now,
I was kind of inspired by this. You just reminded me. I was inspired by this chick named Jody who lived in Lancaster or Palmdale or something. Do you remember her, or you ever hear of her?
no, tell
Yeah,
me.
she I don't remember all of it, but I never met her. But she did similar. Like, she lived out in the high desert somewhere out there, and so she would even host the photographers. She had a spare bedroom, her and a boyfriend, and then she would take them to all these different locations around Palmdale or wherever it was.
Whoa.
And yeah, I kind of stole her idea, to be honest. So I didn't come up with it on
Really?
my own. Yes, I did that. If you happen to be listening to this, I have a much appreciation for you.
Is Jody still posting? Like, is she active online or?
I'm not sure. I think she was. I mean, I don't want to say anyone's too old to model, but I think she was like getting up there even back then. This was like in 2008, 2009. So
Wow.
I don't know. She might just be retired now. She might still be doing it though. I don't know. If she is, good for her.
Yeah, that's kick ass. I haven't heard of Jody, but I think it's really cool to hear that you, who inspired some of what I do, also had an inspiration before you. So,
Yeah. Well, we all owe something to someone else.
yeah, that's really cool. And just like taking people out into the desert as an alternative to doing something like entertainment oriented within town, I think that that was a really great marketing tactic. In fact, I specifically remember you had a YouTube video that you created specifically to advertise these trips. And I thought that that was the greatest thing ever, by the way.
Yeah, I made like a little commercial for it, but I don't think I put it on YouTube. I would probably get taken out. It was on Vimeo. Vimeo is a little bit
Vimeo.
more. Vimeo will let you get away with a little bit more.
Yeah. Though I have had my Vimeo channel taken down a
Well,
lot.
Christy, what haven't you had taken down?
I know. Are you still on Vimeo?
I am. I don't really post anything. I'm all about YouTube now, but
Yeah.
I do still have my Vimeo account.
Yeah, YouTube is easier to get income, right?
Well, I don't even know if you can monetize. I mean, I guess you can monetize Vimeo. I just never even thought about it.
You can monetize on Vimeo, but I don't think it's like paid for the amount of clicks and views. You can, like, I have the documentary that you're actually also in is on Vimeo for like $9 to buy, $5 to rent. So
I
you
see.
can like make a movie and charge people to watch it there.
I could probably do that now that you mention it, because a lot of my YouTube followers are like, when can we see something more that you can show on YouTube? I'm like,
Ah,
well, I don't know. I kind of retired from modeling, but if they just want to watch me hanging out naked in a hot spring or something, I suppose I could do that on Vimeo. Interesting idea.
yeah. We come with all kinds of ideas when we talk on the phone.
Hmm.
So you started modeling in what is these years that you started, and then the year span of years that you were doing these desert tours?
Okay, so I started posing nude in 2008, the end of '08, very end.
Okay.
Uh, well, actually, I guess it was the end of '08, and then I retired in, I think the last shoot I did with a photographer who paid me was in 2018. So yeah, 10 years.
10 years, 2018. So it's been quite a while. So
Yeah, it's been 6 years now that I think about it. I mean, I still do my own photos. Like I have a calendar that I put out for my YouTube channel and stuff,
yeah,
but that's about it, man.
yeah. And so, can you describe like the process leading up to your retirement and your thought process with that?
Well, sure. So as mentioned, I was pretty old to begin with when I started. 33, 32, 33. Well, now I turned 40 in 2016, and so I was like, oh man, how much longer can I keep doing this? I don't want to be that sad, busted old hoe that
Oh
people,
my
you know what I mean? And no disrespect, I know there's plenty of beautiful models over 40. In fact, I can think of one good friend of mine who is amazing. But, I'm just like very self-conscious. Actually, I have a terrible personality to be a model. I'm like super self-conscious. But at the same time, I had coincidentally sort of stumbled onto YouTubing. Uh, I was always looking for cool new places to pose, right? Like I told you, I take these guys on these tours out in the desert, but it was like the same places every time. Okay, I'll take you to the dry lake bed, the old silver mine, and the red rocks. Well, these are new places to these guys. They've never been there, but I've been to these places 500 times. I'm bored. So I'm always looking out in the desert, exploring, trying to find cool new abandoned places, whatever. Well, eventually I just got more into the exploring, looking for the abandoned places, and I started posting that on YouTube. And that I started making money on, and I go, oh, well, maybe I could transition to just YouTubing. And so I modeled and did YouTube from like 2016 to 2018, a couple years. And then eventually I was making so much more money on YouTube that I was like, screw this, man. I retired from modeling.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, like I said, I felt I was getting too old for it. I also just felt like I was it was just getting harder for me to suffer fools. Like a lot of my experience of modeling was, I met a lot of really, really cool people, and a lot of amazing photographers and really great artists. But one of my things was like, I'll shoot with you. I don't care if you're a guy with camera, GWC, doesn't matter to me. Like if you want to use your iPhone, that's fine. And so I did photo shoots with guys who just used their cell phones. And I didn't care. As long as they paid me cash, that was my thing. But some of these guys, like, they all had the same corny ass ideas. Like, oh, hey, I've got an idea for a picture. Why don't you stand next to this lonely highway, just in high heels, nothing else, and like act like you're hitchhiking? Oh, what a great idea! And meanwhile, I've done this friggin' pose like 1,000 times, but and then they want to show you the back of the camera. Go, look at this picture I took you. Oh, that came out so good, even though it's friggin' blasted, overexposed, like. I found that my patience was wearing thin. I thought, I don't want to be a nasty person. I don't want to become bitter. This is a good time for me to gracefully bow out.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah, I get a lot of those feelings sometimes when it is like they think that it's super original, but I've actually done it 1,000 times. And yeah, it's
Yeah. But,
overexposed.
on the other hand, I did a workshop once with, it was me and another model and like 5 photographers. And one of the photographers was a newly retired model. And I think she was still in her 20s. And she was so bitter and snarky about how lame modeling is and lame photographers are. I'm like, golly, I never want to be like that chick.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And she was in her 20s still?
I feel like she was like in her late 20s. Yeah. She was just very like, oh, I retired from modeling. It's lame, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, why are you on this friggin' workshop then? I don't understand that. Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to be salty. Nobody likes saltiness.
No, and now I feel bad even saying that, because like I said, I met many wonderful guys who maybe weren't quote unquote photographers, but they always had a secret fantasy of, photographing a nude woman. And so maybe their poses were trite and they, whatever, they weren't like super creative, but they were nice people, one and all. And
Yeah.
I actually find it very sweet. I think there's something really cute about a guy just wanting to take pretty pictures,
Yeah, there's an innocence to it, and when they're super excited about something, even if it's not, like, top
Yeah.
tier quality, it's nice when people are excited about the photos that they're getting,
Right.
even
I guess
if
it's
they
just for
aren't.
when you've done it 500 times, you're just like, I just felt like it was probably a good idea for me to get out ski.
Yeah, totally. So, and then with that being said, like, when it comes to talking about past experiences, like, if you talk about like all the nice, fun, like peaceful experiences, it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds nice. You have a great life, blah, blah, blah. That kind of doesn't really stick in your memory. But when people ask you about experiences, they want to hear about like the crazy, funny, fucked up, insane
Mhm.
ones, right? And that's why I have this bit on my podcast I call the photo shoot fail of the week, where it's an
Oh.
opportunity for you to tell a crazy story. And if you had more than one that you wanted to tell, we totally have time for that too. But
Oh man. Well, so one of the things about me, I wrote a blog at the same time as I was modeling.
yeah.
So even like people would go, "Oh, aren't you afraid going to the desert with these guys?" "Oh, no, no, nothing bad has ever happened." Well, my definition of nothing bad is I have a pretty high tolerance for shenanigans, okay? Because guys would do weird shit and I never got like huffy or offended by it. I just thought, oh, this will be a good story for my blog, So I did have a lot of weird shit happen to me. I mean, no one ever tried to physically harm me or force themselves on me. One guy I feel like tricked me into watching him jerk off, which I'm still pissed off
What?
about to this day. Yeah, so I did this photo shoot at Harrah's Casino in Vegas, which is there's some really nice casinos in Vegas that make for beautiful photo sets, but Harrah's is a dump, whatever, blah, blah. Whatevs. I'll shoot with anybody. So he opens the door, he's drinking a beer. Okay, fine. It's Vegas. He had like some really crappy shop lights set up. Like he didn't have real lighting equipment. Again, well, I'm not a snob. So he took some pictures of me posing here and there, doing this, taking off my clothes. And then as we're talking, he mentioned, oh, I also work for there's this wealthy lawyer in San Antonio who pays me to make these fetish videos. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just making conversation. What kind of fetish videos? Oh, well, God, I don't even remember the details now. Something like there'd be a guy in the room jerking off, and then there'd be a woman just sitting on the couch nearby, like acting oblivious to it. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Oh, yeah, well, if you're ever in San Antonio, hit me up. I could probably get you some work for that website. Okay, yeah, if I'm ever in San Antonio, I'll let you know. Well, then he goes, well, we could do one of those videos now. And I go, well, where are you going to find the guy to jerk off? Because he said he hired male models to do it. He goes, well, I could just do it. And I mean, I must have known it was bullshit, but I'm also I'm a wuss. I'm very non-confrontational. And so a lot of time I'll just agree to do something because it's easier than fighting about it. And so I go, well, okay. So he set up the camera on a tripod. I sat on the couch and he framed it so that his face wasn't in it, and he jerked
Uh-huh.
off. And then he was like, well, it might be good if you would come like get on your knees in front of me. I go, no, at least I said no to that. But it was
Oh.
still awkward. Like I just felt like, oh man, how did I get duped into that? What a dingling I am.
Damn, dude, that's awkward. I'm
It
sorry.
was, yeah, it was awkward. And it was especially awkward because I had a really cute shirt or skirt or something, I can't remember, that I left in such a hurry after he paid me that I left it in his room. Like,
Oh man.
yeah. But that was, that was kind of unpleasant, I guess. Most of the weird experiences I had were just funny to me. Like another time this guy hired me and I pick him up at the airport and we're driving out to the desert, like start talking. And I go, so where are you from? You got to make conversation. Oh, perhaps it's best if we keep it anonymous. Oh, okay. Like he had a German accent. I could see his friggin' tag on his suitcase. He's from Minneapolis, but okay, sure. We'll keep it anonymous. Like change the topic, talk about something else. He was just very sketchy. He didn't want anyone to know anything about what he was doing. Well, he hired me for 2 days. So we went out in the desert the first day. The second day, he wanted me to go to his hotel room. So
Okay.
I show up at his hotel room the next day and he goes, we took a few photos and then he goes, would you be okay posing nude with me? And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what kind of poses? Oh, like he had some weird idea of like contrasting physical types of beauty, like an old photographer and a young model. And like, it wasn't anything like creepy or sexy. And I was like, well, okay, sure. I'll pose nude with you. And he goes, all right, well, when I take off my shirt, don't be alarmed. And I was like, don't be alarmed. What the fuck? Well, he took off his shirt and he had this huge birthmark, like the size of a dinner plate on his
Whoa.
chest. Yeah, big, dark, furry birthmark, which I'm sure he was totally bullied for growing up, like teased. So it was very awkward for him to be naked in front of another person. So I didn't say anything. Like, I don't care about a birthmark, whatever. So we took a few poses, but it was really hard for him to shoot selfie style because he had this big DSLR. Well, as luck would have it, this other model that I used to work with, he had hired her for part of the day. So she showed up halfway through and he goes, would you mind taking pictures of me and Wonderhussy together naked? Oh, sure. She was happy to do it because, I mean, she didn't have to pose. So we just did these weird poses, like flexing our biceps, like pretending like we were dancing, like just random weird stuff. I think he just really wanted to be naked in front of other people without being judged.
Huh.
Because for the rest of the day, it was just me, the other model, and him sitting around the room bullshitting naked. And then he said he was even going to hire me again to take him out to the desert and walk around naked, but he never did. I think he kind of got what he wanted out of that. But I thought that was a really interesting experience. Huh. And I did blog about it. You know, I always change the names and the details, but he read the blog too. And he said he liked it actually. So that was
cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So it's more like a therapeutic thing for him.
Well, I'm sure, Christy, you found this to be true, that a lot of these guys do just want therapy. They want to talk.
Oh, man, yes. I have had the therapy hat put on my head without realizing it before entering the shoot many, many, many times.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was fine. I mean, I personally would rather talk than pose. So if you just want to talk, hey, all right.
nakedtherapist.com.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. It's probably already taken.
Yeah, probably. I wonder if there's like loopholes where you can get around, because technically you can't say that you provide therapy services without being licensed, right? There's got to be a way around.
Well, you could just be like nudetalker.com or something.
Yeah.
The nude yacker.
Life coach, naked life coach.
Naked life coach. Oh, I love that.
Mentor.
That's a good business opportunity. Any girls who are listening.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of already doing it anyway without advertising it.
Well, speaking of a business opportunity, nobody else is doing what I was doing in Vegas that I know. I still get emails from guys trying to hire me for photo shoots. I'm like, oh, sorry, I retired. And I know a couple. Well, I don't even know if they're still modeling. I know like one model I can refer them to. But there's a big opening for any gal who is interested in going out to the desert with photographers. You could probably make a lot of money.
Yeah. $500 per day. Those rates kind of wouldn't hold up today, though. They'd probably want to fork out a little more.
Well, you know what? Even when I was doing it, especially towards I quit in 2018. So like 2014, 15, 16. Why are you only charging $500 a day? You should be charging at least $700. Listen, man, I knew my market. These guys would sometimes balk at $500. They were, I mean, yeah, of course, I'm sure I could have gotten some of them to pay more, but I felt like that's all the market would bear for me personally at that time.
Yeah. And did people tip you also sometimes?
Hardly. I mean, every now and then they'd be like, oh, do you want to go to dinner? Well, no, not really. I'd rather just go home and be by myself, but okay. I mean, if you consider that a tip.
I suppose, at that rate, it sounds like you had like a large number of people booking that. So at least the volume of $500 shoots was probably good.
Yeah, I have a low overhead, cheap lifestyle. Like my house was paid off. So I don't know. I didn't really hustle that much. And so I never really made more modeling than like, I don't know, maybe 40,000 a year. I really didn't make that much money doing it. That's why I quit and started YouTubing. Oh my God, I made way more money YouTubing and I have to take my clothes off.
Yeah. So, and you're still actively running the YouTube channel now. And how has the progression of your YouTube life gone?
Well, so being a model definitely helped me when I started the channel, because I would always be referring to that. And, it's tittillating to guys to hear, oh, she's a nude model too. So that probably helped me get some subscribers initially, and still probably does. But yeah, I don't know. I just stumbled into it. I was driving back from Burning Man and I happened to pass this old abandoned building. I wasn't sure what it was. Is it a brothel? Was it a motel? Let's go in. I filmed a little video and threw it up for fun on YouTube, and people really enjoyed it. People apparently there's this huge audience for abandoned stuff. People love watching you go through abandoned buildings. So that's kind of how I started. I went to a lot of abandoned stuff. But then I branched out and started I go to a lot of hot springs. I like to be naked in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I still am a big nudist. Obviously I can't show that on YouTube, but I actually like the challenge of like, how can I frame the shot so it doesn't show anything and I don't get, demonetized, but give everybody the idea that I'm naked. And just like you, I was always winding up in Facebook jail, Instagram jail.
Yeah.
YouTube, I even got a couple strikes for showing too much booty. So I came up with this thing 3 years ago that I'm kind of proud of. I have these beautiful naked pictures and I can't share them on Facebook. What am I going to do? Well, I started drawing. I have a stylus on my phone. I would draw a little tiny bikini, a fake bikini on my pictures. And I called it my magic bikini. And I made up this whole backstory about how one time I was traveling through the flea market in Marrakesh and I wandered into this dim, musty little store with this ancient crone in the back. And when she saw me, she knew exactly, without asking, what I needed. What is this? It's a magic bikini. It can only be seen by the eyes of the unclean. So I'll never have to worry about wearing a soggy, wet bikini because it doesn't exist to me because I have a pure heart. But to anybody with an impure heart looking at that picture, they'll see a bikini.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I made that up. I just looked it up this morning, actually, because today we're recording this podcast on July 5th. Did you realize that today is National Bikini Day?
No.
It's I didn't either, but it's the anniversary of the invention of the bikini back in 1946, July 5th. So that prompted me to go, well, when did I make up my magic bikini? And so I looked back through my Instagram and it was July 12th, 1 week from today. Wow. July 12th is Magic Bikini Day. So I hope I'm going to go out somewhere and take a beautiful naked picture and I'm going to post it online wearing my magic bikini so I don't get in trouble. And I invite anyone listening to do the same.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that you created a backstory for it because how to censor your photos without it being tacky is like such an issue, especially on Instagram. It's like you can't just post implied nudes like you used to be able to. Now you have to be wearing something.
Wow, I didn't even know they cracked down that hard.
Well, I think it really depends on how many followers you have because I can't, but so many people that photograph me share images where it's like barely censored and until they get a certain amount of followers. Like if you cross 10,000 or like 100,000 followers, there's like they just seem to get more and more strict with you the more followers you have.
Yeah, that's probably true, but I don't have a ton of followers on Instagram and I still get cracked on every now and then. Well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it could be haters too.
I think that we should never underestimate the power of haters. They are out there.
Yeah, and I don't want to admit that there are people out there that are watching me that hate me that just want to report my shit. That doesn't make me feel good. So I just don't think about that.
Yeah, me neither. I don't read the comments or anything. I don't want to know all your nasty stuff.
Yeah, but YouTube has also changed their nudity policies a lot. Like I used to have a long time ago, like 2015, I had a artistic nude yoga video that was on my channel. I didn't monetize my channel, but it was on there for like 3 years. And it was a fully nude video and it was labeled artistic nude yoga flow or something like that. And I think after 2018, when the Sesta Fasta stuff all went down, they took it down. They said that the title was misleading. And I'm like, well, what about the title was misleading? Because it's a yoga video and it was like black and white and shadowy. So I don't like, did they not think it was artistic or I don't know.
Wow, that's interesting because, yeah, I mean, technically their terms of service state that nudity is permitted if it's in a non-sexualized context. Which, like, I got a strike on my channel once because I was in a hot spring and I had an underwater GoPro, and so I put it underwater and you could see my butt cheek. Well, I didn't think that was sexual, and same like you, it was up for a few years before like in my case, it was monetized, so they didn't just demonetize it, they actually put a strike against my channel, like spanked me hard, took the video down, and I was like, fuck, okay, from now on I gotta be super duper careful. And
yeah,
frustrating because, yeah, I feel like a lot of stuff I do is in fact, almost 100% of what I do is non-sexualized, but I guess that's subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, it's like you used to be able to get away with more stuff on the
Mhm.
internet and less stuff in real life, and now the internet is getting so strict that like you could be naked at a hot spring in real life, but if there's any
Yeah.
documentation of it, YouTube won't allow it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. But like I said earlier, I actually kind of enjoy the challenge of constantly pressing up against the boundaries in a irreverent way, and sticking it to them however I can.
Yeah, yeah, and I try to I like doing that too, but I've also been burned so hard, and I don't think I can afford to lose another platform at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've followed your trials and tribulations, and you've had a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think it's because like my previous modeling nickname was Rebel. And so I think the
Mm.
whole internet collectively was like, "Oh, she's rebelling. We're going to show her."
Well, apparently it hasn't worked because you're still around.
I am still around. Yeah. I haven't been punished as hard lately. But I haven't been pushing the envelope as hard lately either. So,
Yeah, I mean, I got blocked from posting on YouTube for a week about a year ago, but it wasn't anything to do with nudity. I have a line of gummies that I was promoting, and I didn't realize you're not allowed to promote the sale of a regulated substance. So I got locked out of my account for a week. I couldn't post.
oh
And
shit.
yeah, and so my followers at that time, I probably had like, over 200,000 followers. And I'm very, very regular. I post every single week on YouTube since 2016. I never miss a week. And so I missed a week. And so all these people are freaking out. Most people who follow me are older, like my grandmas and
Mhm.
grandpas. Oh, Wonderhussy, I'm getting all these emails. Are you okay? Oh my God, what happened? I go, well, fuck, if this happens again, I need a way to be able to reach people. If you get shut down, you need to be able to reach people. So I revamped my website and I started promoting that. Like, okay, everybody, if I ever disappear from YouTube, go to wonderhussy.com to find out what happened, and blah blah blah. So I feel like those who remember to do that, at least they'll know.
Yeah, and speaking of wonderhussy.com, from what I recall, you have, and this is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, but you have part of your website that has a map with like pins for a lot of the locations that you've scouted. And I just want to say that so many photographers have told me that they referenced your website when they were trying to find stuff out there. So I think it's so great that you have that resource for
Well,
photographers.
I unfortunately I redid my website, and so that's not there anymore. But I did, yeah. I had. Well, I need to write a little modeling ebook for Vegas area because I do have some great locations and some very good advice. And yeah, I did. I had a few pages up on that website. Like one was, I can't remember, tips, tricks, blah blah, locations, and a map. Yeah, I did. I had a map with all the cool places to go. Which now people are so weird about sharing sensitive locations. I'd probably get
Mhm.
blasted for that anyway.
Yeah, that's totally a thing. And I've been traveling around South Utah a lot, and I find that Instagrammers with big followers, once they make a viral video about a secluded spot, like
Yeah.
suddenly everybody in their Prius wants to get stuck in the mud there.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on like geotagging and all of that?
Well, it's very fraught because my YouTube channel is me going to weird and unusual places in the middle of nowhere. I go to a lot of hot springs, and people are like natural hot springs. People are very protective of, don't tell anybody about this hot spring, or don't tell anybody about this ghost town or whatever. So I'd probably have way more followers if I just didn't give a shit and posted the name and told people how to get there. But I don't. I try to be ethical about it. Like I'll go to these
Mhm.
places, I'll obfuscate like how I got there. I won't say exactly where I am. I do what I can because I get it. I don't like to see these places get overrun. But at the same time, there's most of my followers are old, okay? Like over the age of 65, 75. I mean, most people who watch my videos, they're not getting out of the house. They can't get out of the house. They're physically incapable, whatever. And this is their little window to the world. And some of my followers are disabled, and they can't get out to see this stuff. And they would never be able to see these things if it wasn't for somebody making a YouTube video. And so I feel like, in a way, it's democratic. Like everyone should be able to see these places. Like you don't like this whole gatekeeping of like, oh, only the cool people should know about this hot spring. That chafes me. I understand why people feel that way for sure, because I've been to plenty of trashed hot springs. But I don't know. There just seems like there's something a little snooty about that attitude. So I don't know. I try to friggin' straddle the line and show
Yeah.
places, but not show too much, not give too many details, you know?
Yeah, and I have similar feelings about it too. Like the areas that I found, like if somebody wants to go there, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm not going to tell you. I don't think that I would personally like post the GPS coordinates publicly,
Yeah.
but if somebody wanted to DM me and they seem chill, I'd be like, yeah, here it is, you know, but
Right. I usually, like in my videos, you can, if you really want to figure out where a place is, you can figure it out by like matching up the ridge line of the mountains. I mean, if you want to go through that amount of work, which I'm thinking of
yeah.
one video I made in particular, I was really, really very scarce with info. Like I didn't say anything about where it was. And this guy emailed me. He figured out by matching up the mountains, and he went through all this hours on Google Maps and he figured out where it was. And like,
Wow.
if you go through all that to find a place, and I feel like you're probably a pretty cool person, and if you go all the way out and check it out in person, you're not going to trash it. You know, you
Yeah,
deserve that.
totally.
It was like a
Yeah.
treasure hunt. You earned it.
I agree with that. If they're going to go through the effort of researching how to get there instead of just getting the easiest shortcut possible, they're probably more likely the person that's not going to shit on the ground or leave their trash behind or whatever.
Well, you never know, though, man. Woo-wee, there's some ground shitters out there. Woof.
Oh man, yeah. Or it's just broken glass. Like, give me a
Yeah,
break. Like,
yeah.
clean that shit up, dude. Like,
I know, dude. Listen, there was a big old maxi pad on the trail the other day. I was at a nude beach. I'm like, really, lady? Come
yeah,
on.
pack it out. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
take only pictures, leave only footprints.
Yeah, no kidding. That's my MO. But I got in the habit of picking up other people's trash. I did not pick up that maxi pad, but I have in the past picked up a soiled maxi pad. So,
Ooh.
yeah, I know.
I want to take a short little break to tell you about Model Society. ModelSociety.com is a website dedicated to featuring figurative fine art photography for models and photographers. What makes them different than other portfolio hosting websites is that some of those other websites will still host kind of tacky photography or exploitative photos. Model Society screens all of their contributors for quality and authenticity. So you only get the best of the best on there. If you're not a photographer or model, you can still enjoy and appreciate Model Society because they also have newsletters and magazines featuring their best work and new articles each week. Check it out, modelsociety.com. I will also include a link to Model Society in the show notes. All right, now back to our show.
So I have another part of my podcast that I call the Rising Phoenix era of your life. Can you describe, and this could be related to your modeling or not, a time in your life where you were faced with some kind of a challenge that you had to overcome?
Well, yeah, the fact that I'm short and flat-chested and old, and I decided to start modeling anyway. I mean, that's 3 challenges right there. And
Yeah.
I mean, how did I overcome it? Well, I guess I just I like to push myself to do things that I feel a little bit uncomfortable about, like I'm a shy person by nature, believe it or not. So by forcing myself to do those first few nude shoots and then seeing like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not as ugly as I thought. Like people are wanting to hire me, just kind of gently forcing myself to do it. Didn't make me grow as a person. And I will say that I think modeling definitely, I grew as a person from doing that because now I'm comfortable being naked in front of anyone, anytime, anywhere. And most people, their biggest fear is being naked in public.
Yeah.
I don't have that fear, which I think is very liberating. I also don't have to worry about somebody blackmailing me with nude photos. Oh,
Right.
you got a nude photo of me? Gee, you and everybody else, big deal.
Yeah, tag me.
Right. So in terms of what I had to overcome, just my self-consciousness, in a way, like, I don't know, I struggle with it. I felt like modeling was psychically damaging because I was constantly looking at my face like, oh, new wrinkle, oh, gray hair, oh, now my ass is sagging. But in another way, it was very affirming to my ego, I guess, or my sense of worth. Like, oh, people are willing to pay me to take pictures of me. All right, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, and I recall at the beginning of the episode, now that we're kind of describing like this freeingness of being a nude model, that you had exited a relationship with somebody who was really conservative, and then in getting out of it, you were like, "Well, I'm going to pose nude now." Like, tell me more about that.
Well, I was in this 2-3 year relationship with this guy who was very sweet. He was younger than me, like just
Oh,
wonderful guy. But he just had different life goals than me. He wanted to have kids and coach a little league and like be very white bread. And I didn't grow up like that, but I was really, I guess I was in love with him. I was okay. Well, we bought a house together, and
wow.
he made me put all my weird, he called it my kooky stuff. All my kooky stuff had to go in this one room, my kooky room. Like
Oh,
I had this like mannequin, this porn store mannequin with giant tits, like my maps, like maps are kooky. Okay, whatever. So like all my weird art supplies, like I had to go in this one room. And so when I did finally break up with him, I was like, oh, I can finally let everything out of the kooky room. The world is now my kooky room.
yeah. So he was trying to like kind of fit you into a box that he was comfortable with, and you were like so much more like weird
Yeah.
and wild than that.
Well, to be honest, I was trying to fit myself into his box because I liked him.
Oh,
He wasn't necessarily at fault, but it was a very mutually amicable parting. No hard feelings on either side, ish.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, as those kind of things always go, like breakups are never fun, but they're
Yeah.
necessary for moving forward, you know?
Well, actually, that breakup led me to nude modeling in two different ways. One, yeah, I wanted to just prove to myself that I wasn't afraid to be photographed nude, but also we had bought that house together, but it was in my name. So now all of a sudden I'm left with this giant mortgage, and I
Oh,
had to start nude modeling to
shit.
pay the friggin' bill. So I started, because I did have that overhead. I found that I did some gigs that I really wasn't comfortable doing. I started doing a lot of fetish work, which I enjoyed fetish work. I did a lot of fetish stuff, and I had a lot of fun doing it. But some fetish gigs that I took, I really didn't want to do it, but I was like, oh, well, fuck, I got to pay the mortgage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So it must feel so good now that you have less bills, like you were saying, like
Oh
not
my
as much
God.
overhead, so you can be more chill about what you're doing.
It's 100% much better.
Oh
Yes.
my God. I need to get to that point because I have a lot of bills right now and I'm sort of in that boat.
Oh, well, you'll get through it.
Yeah.
You're a smart and very resourceful person. I have no doubt you will get through it and be a better person for it at the
Oh,
end.
thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah. It can be tough at times. Like the need to hustle is definitely a thing. And then the whole like, oh, I this aspect of my career that I'm like not so on board with, I'm still gonna push for because it pays the bills.
Right. Well, I mean, most people hate what they're doing anyway, so what's the difference? Like, oh God, I got to go out to the freaking desert and fart on some guy's face or whatever the fetish was. Like,
Oh
gee
my
whiz.
God.
Not that I never actually did that.
Oh my
Um,
God. I was hoping that you did.
I did a video once where this guy tried to get me to fart in his face, but I'm a lady, I wasn't raised to fart on people's faces. I couldn't do it. And it was funny too, because he goes, well, what would make you gassy? I go, I don't know. I'm lactose intolerant. So I drank like a giant thing of milk. We went to Taco Bell and got a bean burrito, but I was so bloated, but I just couldn't do it, man. I was too
Oh my
nervous.
God.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah,
Hey, you
well,
tried. You tried.
I gave it the old college try, so he still paid me, but he didn't get his dream, unfortunately.
Oh my God. When I heard that farting was a fetish, I was like, what?
Yeah, I just, you gotta have the talent for it. Some girls do. I didn't. I did a lot of burping fetish. I could burp pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely something like that video could potentially be used as blackmail. Like if you're doing farting stuff, like all
Oh,
right,
true. Yeah,
you
but I
know,
mean, I'm telling everybody about it on this podcast. I don't care. Let the video come out.
for sure.
I mean, that being said, there's like one video that's still up on the internet that I do find kind of embarrassing, where there's this kind of fetish called vore, VORE,
Uh-huh.
which it can be two different things. It can be giant women eating little tiny men, but it can also be women being eaten by monsters.
Yes.
So I like the giant woman eating tiny men thing. I did a number of those. Lots of fun. Being eaten by a monster, not too bad. I've done it with Tomiko. You know Tomiko,
Oh yeah.
right? Yeah, she's got a big monster, and it's fun shooting with her. Well, this other guy I think he's from Wisconsin, he came to Vegas, and he has a big vore site, and he had this monster that he was going to eat me. I go, okay, sure. Well, it was just it was more sexualized than I was really comfortable with. He wanted me to pretend like I was having sex with the monster. I'm like, oh God, I can't do this. But again, I'm just a people pleaser and I'm weak-willed. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I did it kind of funny, like, ha ha ha. But it's still like, I don't know, it's kind of cringy to me personally.
Yeah, and I've definitely done stuff like that where later on I'm like, damn, I know I got paid and I agreed to it, but I wish that I didn't, you know?
Yeah, that's not a good feeling, but I guess it happens to probably everybody in some way or another,
Yeah. And it's also part of what modeling does, especially freelance modeling like this for us, that helps us learn how to set boundaries and how important it is
Mm.
to know what your boundaries are and how to speak up for yourself because we're not taught that when we're kids.
No, you're absolutely right. So, yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I did learn to stand up for myself. I'm still pretty weak-willed, but I just quit putting myself in those positions.
Yeah. Would you say that you're like introverted and that you put yourself in an extroversion phase for like certain phases of your life or?
Oh yeah, I grew up way, way shy, and I've talked about this a bunch on my YouTube channel. I'm a very introverted, shy person at heart, but I felt like I was missing out on life. Like I didn't want to be shy. Well, then this is going to sound terrible, but I used alcohol as a tool to help me not be shy anymore. So I moved to Vegas, and I got a job as a photographer in a casino. Like you go to see a show in Vegas and they come around and take your souvenir photo. So now my job is I have to go into this room full of strangers, approach them. Hi, I'm here to take your photo. No obligation. Just buy them if you like them after the show. But then you got to try to talk them into buying them. And like, oh my God, that's a lot for an introvert. So every evening before my shift, I would have to have a cocktail just to like give myself the cojones to go out there. And I did it. It took a couple years. And then eventually one day I was like, oh, I don't need to have this drink. I'm legitimately okay just going into a room full of strangers and yakking at them. And I'm to this day, I mean, I've even given public speaking. I'm not afraid of public speaking. I'll speak in front of 3 people, 100 people. I've even done it naked. I did a public talk naked one time.
What?
It was at like this erotic arts festival. It's supposed to be like a naked TED talk.
Cool.
Unfortunately, they bungled the logistics. Were so fucked up. The projector didn't work. I had all these photos that I meant to accompany the talk. They didn't even print the right time, so nobody showed up. It's more awkward actually standing naked talking to 6 people than it is 100 people.
Yeah, totally.
But I mean, I still did it. Standing there naked in front of 6 people. But I would do it in front of 100, 1,000, or 100,000. It ain't no difference to me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I am, to answer your question, I am introverted, but, I need my alone time at the end of every day, but I'm extroverted all day long and that's fine.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like I could also, do a speech in front of people if I was mentally prepared for it or like, be entertaining or be the therapist. But then after the shift is over, I have to turn it off. Like when a shoot is done, I'm like, okay, that was creative energy, it was social energy, and now I need to recover. And if I don't get a recovery time, then I get angsty.
100%. That earlier I said something that probably sounded kind of bitchy, like the guy would go, oh, do you want to go to dinner after the shoot? No, I don't want to go to dinner. I want to go home and be by myself. Well, I mean that because I need my alone time, man. I need to not smile and not talk and just like, I want to fucking relax, dude.
Yeah, totally. And I've learned a lot about this because I'm dating somebody who has a tendency to be more extroverted a lot of the time and more social. And for some people who are extroverts, like being around other people energizes them. And then for introverts, being around nobody energizes us. It's kind of a weird, like yin and yang sort of a thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I actually do feel like I changed my personality to where I am basically extroverted now with introverted tendencies. So I get energized talking to people, but I do need my alone time.
Yeah. And I align with that also.
Good.
So looking back on your past career, like what would you say were some of the highlights? And do you feel like that you had goals like for your modeling that you accomplished? Or is it just something that was like fun for a while and now it's over?
Well, my real goal was just to make money and pay my dang mortgage. And then about, half-ish way through my modeling, actually 2012, so I'd been modeling for 3 or 4 years, I ended up getting rid of that house. So I had no mortgage and I bought a new house cash and I didn't have any overhead anymore. So I continued to model though, because it was like, well, I'm making money doing this and I could buy, groceries and whatnot. So I didn't have that thing hanging over me, making me do these gigs, but I kept doing them because I guess I did enjoy it. You're outdoors, or I was outdoors in nature, meeting a lot of very interesting people. I never really had a goal like, oh, I want to get on the cover of Vogue. I was old. I was already 33 when I started. I was realistic about it.
Yeah.
That being said, I did get a profile in Penthouse magazine a few years ago, which I thought was really funny because when I was doing nudes, I was always, oh, I only do Playboy style nudes, closed leg. But then Penthouse reached out to me because of my YouTube thing, and they did a kind of a profile on me, and they asked me to submit my own picture. And so I submitted a very tasteful implied nude from this photographer had taken of me, and they put that in Penthouse. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, that's kick-ass, actually.
Yeah, so there's my claim to fame. Never a bridesmaid, only a bride. Never in Playboy, only in Penthouse.
I mean, Penthouse is a super legit name, too. I mean, Playboy, I feel like they've kind of gotten really weird about their marketing lately. After Hefner died, and then Playboy.com is different than Playboy the magazine and all this weird stuff.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah. So they have Playboy Online, and it was a separate entity from Playboy the magazine because Hugh Hefner wanted to be the magazine guy, but he kind of botched the staying up with the times because he was just doing it to be surrounded by women and didn't really put in the market research for what people want now.
Right.
Yeah. So the Playboy Online was centerfold of the year, all these now that Hefner's dead, his children have taken over the business, and they in I think it was 2019 or 2020, they even went backwards, and they were we're not going to do nudes in the magazine anymore.
Oh, right. I remember that.
Yeah. And then they were just kidding, we're going to put nudes in there now. And yeah, so they've been kind of all over the place. If you look at their Instagram page, they've also got pictures of guys wearing fashion of theirs.
What?
And yeah, you should check it out. They still do nudes, but they've kind of changed a lot, and I think that their marketing is a little bit confusing to some of their OG fans.
Oh, yeah, it was an era, man. It was a historical era.
Yeah, totally. I mean, but I think Penthouse seems to have been pretty consistent. I think it's cool that they did an expose about you without having to do crop shots.
Yeah, it was a very positive experience too, because it was all women. The woman who interviewed me, the woman who set it up, the publisher's a woman. It's all women, and they were cool. They got it.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I mean, Maxim seems to have faded out and all that stuff, but I mean,
I feel haven't magazines in general faded? I don't know. Do people read magazines? I feel everyone's just looking at TikTok or OnlyFans or Instagram.
Right. Yeah. And did you ever do any Patreon, OnlyFans type stuff?
Well, I never. OnlyFans, I don't think was out when I was modeling, so I never did that. And then Patreon, people were always telling me I should do it because I had that blog that I was sharing. I would shared a lot of my nudes on the blog, but I don't know. I got hung up on the whole oh, well, if you pledge $5 a month, I'll send you a picture of my ass. If you pledge $20 a month, I'll send you a picture of my twat. It just seemed too complicated. So I never did Patreon. I do now with my YouTube. And it's a great platform. I really appreciate my patrons. They help me out a lot.
That's cool. Yeah. And honestly, I think that with you having focused a lot on what you're doing with your YouTube, it's a really good example to a lot of other people out there that you don't have to have a massive presence on every single platform. If you focus really well on just one or two or three.
Yes, 100%. I don't even have a TikTok, man. I'm just all YouTube.
Yeah. And I mean, that's good. I mean, I still struggle with, I have to have an Instagram channel for this aspect of me and an Instagram channel for that aspect of me. And it's just, I think it's better to just focus on having your one personality on your one.
Well, it is and it isn't, but then you do alienate some people. I've thought the same thing too. I know I would have way more YouTube subscribers. I'd probably have at least 1 million by now if my name wasn't Wonderhussy. And I have heard people tell me, as much. Like, oh, my wife won't watch any of your videos because of the hussy, or, this Native American tribe wouldn't let me do a video because of hussy, whatever. If I change my name to like Adventures with Sarah Jane or something, I guarantee I'd be more successful. But I'm just kind of stubborn, I guess, and punk rock. Like, fuck you. No, I'm not changing my name. But that being said, I did consider, well, maybe I should have a second channel that's just like family friendly. But I sort of feel like what you said. No, I just want to be me. And if you want to follow me, follow me. If you don't, don't. And that's the end of the story.
That's good. I think that just being genuine in the end is probably for the best. Even if the Native American people that we're gonna interview you are missing out. But that does, I mean, it sucks for them, honestly, because
that's how I feel, man. You're missing out, y'all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think something that I saw you post on Facebook like years ago always stuck with me. So you made an impact because you said something about how you believe in radical transparency.
Yes, I do.
So just, talking about stuff that happened, talking about your feelings, like talking about like, who you really are and not hiding aspects of yourself, like being completely transparent with the world.
Yeah, I just feel like it's kind of a defense mechanism too, because again, nobody can blackmail you with some dirt if you're constantly putting that. I mean, you might consider that just oversharing, but if you're putting it all out there, there's nothing they can get you for,
Yeah. And I do think about that sometimes because like it has been a challenge for me constantly to be like, okay, my modeling is not like 100% like who I am in real life because there's things in my real life that I don't incorporate in my social media. There has to be a little bit of a separation, I feel, for my sanity, but I still do vent about what's happening in my personal life a lot on my modeling channels. Have you struggled with that?
I definitely struggle with that. I mean, for YouTube, I totally toned it down. And some would say that I did sell out. In fact, I've had people email me, oh, I miss the old Wonderhussy, or, on my blog, I cussed a lot and I was very sharp and snarky. Then I started YouTubing and I didn't really expect that many people to be watching my videos. So the first couple of videos I make, I'm holy fuck and fucking this and goddamn motherfuck. Well, I got these emails from people, young lady, I told you it's older people who watch my channel. Young lady, I was trying to watch this video with my granddaughter and you talk like a sailor. So I was like, oh, holy cow, I guess I got to stop cussing. How am I going to do that? Like I was such a prolific cusser. I considered it a victimless crime and one of life's greatest pleasures to cuss. Yeah. But I had to stop. So I started saying stuff like, holy cow, holy cannoli, yikes, like very hokey, like over the top hokey as placeholders for cussing. And then that spilled over into my normal life too. So I don't know, maybe I am kind of a watered down version of myself to this day. I'm still constantly poking my following, but gently so, because I don't want to alienate them. There's a lot of very conservative people who follow me inexplicably because I do a lot of off-roading and I go to historical sites. I have like some very conservative followers. And so I have to be mindful of like, okay, I can talk about my love of doing mushrooms or my love of running around naked or, I don't shave my armpits. I can flash a little armpit here and there, but if I do too much, it's just going to drive them away. So, I mean, you could call that dumbing it down or you can call it just, I'm trying to bring everybody together. And, by seeing little flashes of my weirdness every now and then, these people are getting exposed to a lifestyle that they wouldn't normally be. And maybe it's sort of acclimating them to that,
Yeah, you are like with your YouTube channel, at the end of the day, you are an entertainer. So there's a little bit of customer service that's required.
Yeah, well, that is what I kind of don't like about it. Like you were talking about your personal life and your personal sanity. I feel like I have no personal life. Like my life is on the internet. Like there's very little that I do think or feel that I don't vlog. And that I think that is kind of fucked up.
Yeah, you're monetizing your personal life in a way.
Yeah, I mean, and to the point where I don't have a personal life,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because you have so many people that deeply care about you, but you're also having to self-police yourself.
Yeah, and then it's awkward because people see what they want to see in me. Like, okay, when I started YouTubing, I was very left-wing, hippy-dippy, run around, Burning Man, hairy armpits, mushrooms. And I'm still pretty much like that. I mean, I've maybe gotten a little more moderate over the years, but not much. But like I said, there's all these conservative folks who watch my channel. And so I don't want to alienate them. So I adopted, like I wear these American flag print sunglasses, and I sort of dress like a normie, like a conservative off-roading normie, just to sort of placate them. But I'm still my same weird ass self. Wait, I forget. What was the question you asked me? I lost my train of thought.
Something about like feeling like you don't have a personal life anymore because you're
right. So
life.
Right. So because I sort of present myself as like this neutral, she could be a lefty, she could be a righty, and I don't talk about politics at all on my channel.
That's good.
And it's very interesting to me to see in the comments like these super, I mean, I have some loony lefties and some real hardcore righties, but they'll be having this conversation about my video because politics are out of the, thing. And so it's nice. There's not that many places where people communicate with each other from these opposing viewpoints anymore, and everything's so polarized. So I really appreciate that. That being said, people see in me what they want to see in me. So a conservative guy will watch my video and go, yeah, she looks like a patriot. And a liberal person will watch it and go, oh, yeah, she looks like a hippie, whatever. And that can lead to some pretty significant misunderstandings. Like this guy had been watching my channel for quite some time. He said he'd been watching it for years. He had this huge crush on me. I was his dream woman. So, we're kind of texting back and forth, whatever. He seemed cool. I go, all right, I'll call you, because he kept trying to get me to call him. And I really hate talking on the phone, but he seemed like a cool guy. So I go, all right, I'll call you. And so I called him, and this is the first time we spoke on the phone. And after like 10 minutes, he very abruptly basically hung up on me. And I was like, holy fuck, that was weird. Okay. Well, come to find out, he was really offended by something I said he brought up George Soros in the first 3 minutes of the conversation. And I just made a very lighthearted comment like, oh, we've only been talking for 3 minutes and you're already talking about George Soros. And he was so offended by that. He emailed me, at least he had the decency to email me after. He goes, hey, sorry I hung up on you so abruptly, but I just couldn't stand talking to you any longer. And I was like, holy shit. Well, and I come to find out, because, I was like, okay, yeah, no worries. It was, no offense taken. I get it. Like, we're just not well suited. And he emailed me a few more times. So I came to understand that, yeah, he had been watching my videos and he had sort of built up this impression of who I was, or this idea of who I was. And he doesn't know me, the real me, because I'm not really 100% my authentic self online. So he was probably just taken aback when confronted with the real authentic me. And so that's something I have to be mindful of. Like, no matter how many of my videos you've watched, you don't really know me.
Yeah.
Until you actually know me.
Yeah, he had a fantasy version of you, and he thought that he was going to get that thing that he had created in his mind when he talked to you on the phone.
And come to find out, there's a clinical term for it. It's called limerence. I thought that was a very interesting word. Yeah. If you have like this weird crush or obsession with somebody that you don't really know, it's called limerence.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'll bet there's a lot of guys who have a limerence type obsession with you, Christy.
Yeah, perhaps. And I have had people, like back when my nickname was Rebel, I had people like making these assumptions about my political leanings, and I had a lot of weird emails based around that. So I felt the need to post publicly on my Instagram and YouTube what the roots of my nickname was, because it was me rebelling against my strict upbringing, not a political reference.
Yeah, well, sometimes you do need to clear these things up,
Yeah, and that turned a lot of people off, and people would send me nasty comments and emails like, oh, I thought it was this. Like, how could you not think this way? And I'm like, dude, chill out. Like, you had this idea in your head, and the limerence. I'm going to check that out and go down that rabbit hole, because that sounds
it is a real. It was the one positive thing to come out of an unpleasant interaction is I learned a cool new word. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, we've gone about the length of time that these episodes usually last. Is there any like words of wisdom that you would like to give to any photographers or models that might be listening to this episode?
Well, I feel like I'm so long retired that I don't even know. Do people even still use Model Mayhem? Like,
Model Mayhem is still used. I maybe get like 10% of my bookings out of it, where it used to be 100% like 10 years ago.
So where do you get booked now? On Instagram?
Mostly Instagram, and nowadays models are pooling together in group chats and sharing contacts with each other.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's nice.
I get a lot of my work that is recommendations from other models that are like, oh, you're going to go to Chicago? Well, here's all my contacts in Chicago. I'll trade you my Chicago contacts for your Portland contacts.
Oh, so you basically just like hit them all up, like send them all emails like, hey, I'm going to be traveling to town if you want to hire me?
Yeah. There's a lot of that now.
Okay, interesting. Well, I love that. Yeah, so as far as advice, I don't know. I mean, my MO is outdated, but if anybody wants to do that Vegas desert tour thing, I'm telling you, it's a hot ticket and you could probably do pretty well with it. You could charge whatever you think you can charge. I'm happy to, if you want to email me, I'll give you my location information, although some of that might be out of date too.
I think a lot of it is still relevant. The only thing, if you've recently in the last few years revamped your website and the map's not there anymore, I was on your website at least 2 years ago and I saw the Wheel of Misfortune.
Yeah.
Apparently you can't go there anymore.
I think that they're building houses there or something. They tore it out, unfortunately. Yeah, and then, well, there's also this really cool silver mine that I used to go pose at because I had this really cool weathered old building and it was just like, looked like an old ghost town. But every time I went there, I would take the guy out there, hour-long drive, and as we would approach the site, I would be sort of like, oh, yikes, is this thing even going to be standing anywhere? Because it was always like falling apart, and it was like a metaphor for my own physicality, like, oh my God, I'm falling apart just like this building is. One day I'm going to bring a photographer here, and it's just going to be a pile on the ground. Same with my body. Well, that building, I'm pretty sure isn't there anymore, but some of my other locations, yeah, they're still around, and I'm happy to share them with anyone who wants to take up the mantle.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Wonderhussy, for doing this podcast episode with me. It'll come out next Thursday. I'll be in touch with you, and I'm so happy that we got to do this.
Okay, great. Well, I very much enjoyed it. Thank you, Christy.
Hell yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.